your thoughts is what drives everything. So the way you think about a specific circumstance is going to reflect in the way you feel, the way you act, and the results that follow. So once you get that cognitive behavioral model, that structure down, then you can really transform your thoughts about any type of situation that comes your way. So any challenge now becomes an opportunity.
Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. Alex Schloe.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Alex Schloe, and today I'm joined by Dr. Olga Deengar. She is a board-certified hospitalist in the U.S. and in Canada, a certified life coach, founder of Coach Olga MD, creator of the DAMA Method and the DAMA Club. She's host of the Coffee Playdate podcast, and her work is centered on helping high-achieving women physicians and professionals reclaim their time, their energy, and their confidence without sacrificing their career or family. In this episode, we're going to talk about what that looks like to build medicine on your own terms, the mindset shifts that are required to do that. We're going to share her journey and her framework to help physicians create a life that is more aligned, intentional, and free. Olga, I'm so glad to have you on the podcast today. Do you mind telling folks a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Hi, Alex. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So my journey began really, of course, we all went through medical school and residency. But I often get asked, why did you go into life coaching? Like, where did you even hear about it? What made you pursue this alternative route, not your traditional clinical medical work? And my journey actually began in 2024 when I had to make a big transition in my life. We all go through transitions. We all have big things that happen to us. And this might come as a little bit of a surprise, but I was working as a full-time hospitalist and putting in probably about 70 hours a week, if we're being honest. And then I had to transition to being a full-time mom. So 0 hours at the hospital because my husband got a job in Florida and we moved down here to Florida. So that was a really big identity shift for me because I was like, I've been a doctor for like an attending physician for about 3.5 years at that point in time. Like, what do I do? How do I just become a mom? So it took a lot of coaching, and I worked with a coach to help me through this because my day looked totally different. I wasn't taking care of patients anymore. I had to make sure I had some sort of structure, some sort of schedule for our household. I had to take care of household tasks. And it was a complete transformation. And most people are like, well, you're so lucky. You get to be a mom. You get to spend all this time with your kids. And I absolutely love my kids. Of course, I love my family, but it was just a tough new identity to step into. But once I kind of figured my path there, and my coach really got me through showing me that your thoughts is what drives everything. So the way you think about a specific circumstance is going to reflect in the way you feel, the way you act, and the results that follow. So once you get that cognitive behavioral model, that structure down, then you can really transform your thoughts about any type of situation that comes your way. So any challenge now becomes an opportunity. It's now an opportunity for growth and for development and really to make the most out of any lemon that life throws your way. So that's where it all really started. And then after that, I started learning more about life coaching and I started working with clients. Then I developed my DAMA method. DAMA stands for driven, aligned, building momentum, and taking action. So those are the pillars. It's a coaching framework that I use to help my clients set goals and achieve them. So really know where you are and then figure out where you want to go and really bridge that gap between getting from point A to point B and beyond. So this is a framework you can use in any area of your life, your relationships, your health, your career, personal growth. So I've had a lot of great clients go through 180-degree transformations with this framework, which I'm really passionate about. And I'm really glad that I was able to help them achieve the goals that they were working towards. So other than that, I do still practice medicine, but like you said, it is on my own terms. And that's what I love about the life that I've built. I was able to create multiple other streams of income. One of them is being through the life coaching business, but also through real estate and a lot of other investments as well. And practicing medicine now looks like this for me. So every summer for 8 weeks, about 10 weeks, my family and I, we go to Toronto, which is where we're from. I'm Canadian. And I pick up hospitalist shifts there. I have privileges at 5 different hospitals in the Toronto area. And I get to build my own schedule. I get to choose the weeks that I want to work on. And then sometimes I double up on shifts. It really just depends on how much I'd like to put in working that week. And the kids get to avoid the Florida heat. They get to be at a Russian-speaking day camp. So I was born in Russia, and that's part of our culture. We really want to integrate them into the Russian culture and the language. So they do pretty well with that, and they get to practice sports like sports camps, tennis, ice hockey, which you don't find that often in Florida. So all the things that we really can't do in this area, they get to do back in Toronto. And that's just, again, figuring out what opportunities exist and taking advantage of the things that you have at your disposal.
That is awesome. When you've really been intentional and driven to build that life of your dreams, which you've been to give you the flexibility to go to Toronto and practice for those 8 to 10 weeks. And that is awesome. One other thing I think I really wanted to hit on based off your story and your journey is kind of that shift that you went through from being a physician, practicing 70 hours a week to then being a mom, which is way more of a full-time job and definitely harder than being a physician, especially 3 boys, as we were talking about before we got started on the podcast. It is a completely different shift. And I'm sure, and you mentioned a little bit of that struggle with identity. And I think a physician struggle a lot with what happens when I take the white coat off or take the stethoscope off, and what does that life look like for me, whether that's just stepping back or whether that's leaving medicine completely. What would you say to folks who are struggling with that right now?
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Initially you have all of these fears, like, what am I doing? What's going to happen? I'm not going to have that stable income anymore. That stable paycheck that comes in every 2 weeks or so, and that's a hard place to be because that's kind of like your safety blanket. You want that. You don't want to get rid of it. It keeps you nice and cozy. But that's just a limiting belief, because if you know that what you're doing is fulfilling to you, it's obviously contributing to the family, it's making a difference in your life, and what you're doing is not just clinical work, but things that really make you happy. I think that's much more important than having that safety net of a financial security blanket. So remember why you're doing it. I think the most important thing is to tune into your why. Why are you doing this? What is the most important thing to you? What's your outcome? What are you looking to achieve by stepping into this new role? And there's always pros and cons that you can list, but really focus on the pros and how can you make that even better? How can you make that part of your life and enjoy the process while you're in it? Because sometimes situations come up in life where maybe you lose your job or you get laid off. That happens, but you always have to find the silver lining behind everything that comes your way. So really focus in on what you can improve and what you can work on, the things that you really can control, and try not to think so much about the things that you do not have any control over. So that's what's helped me a lot. And just reframing my thinking around that has gotten me through this tough transition in my life.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that and being willing to. And I think a lot of times physicians, we think about, what happens if I go part-time, or what happens if I leave for a period of time and, we're really not happy or satisfied where we're at in our current profession. And we think about that and we just feel that weight of the golden stethoscope, I like to call it. And a lot of times I tell folks, like, right now, if you're miserable in your job and you're really burnt out, like, there's no reason not to take a step back. There's no reason not to, work part-time or whatever that may be, because right now your biggest fear is your present day reality, right? Worst comes to worst, you can just go back and work full-time in medicine or probably get your job right back that you had previously with all the shortage of physicians right now. And so there's a lot of different opportunity there. You just have to sometimes be willing to have that courage to go against the mold and be willing to step back or be willing to call it quits if that's what you feel like is best for you and your dream life. But you have to spend that time to figure out, what does your dream life really look like for you and how am I going to achieve that, and go from there. So what are some tips and tricks that you have for folks who are trying to figure out what does practicing medicine on their own terms and living life on their own terms look like for them, and how do they get started?
Yeah, well, first you have to figure out, what is your life vision? What do you want to achieve? What goal are you working towards? Once you can put that together, ask those questions, write down what you want to do, where you want to be, how you want to look, what things you want to have around you, what people you want to surround yourself with. Write all of those things down and work towards that. That gives you kind of like a guiding compass, a direction to work towards. And even if that life vision or life dream changes, at least you're working towards something that you're more passionate about and that is more intentional. So create a life vision. You can use a vision board. A lot of folks use that, cut out pictures from a magazine about your dream vacation home or a place you want to travel to or a car you want to have, whatever success means to you. And then put it up somewhere where you can look at it every single day so that you know what you're working towards. Now, once you have your life vision in place, the next step would be to kind of work backwards and create all of the action steps that you need to take along the way to get you to the life that you envision. So your 1-year plan, 9-month plan, like quarterly plans, and then all the way down to your daily small action steps that you have to take to get you where you want to be.
How would you like to build real estate cash flow without dealing with tenants, toilets, or late night maintenance calls? This episode is brought to you by Rent to Retirement. If you're a busy physician or professional who wants passive income and long-term wealth through real estate, Rent to Retirement has been helping investors do exactly that for over 15 years. They offer fully managed turnkey rental properties in some of the best markets in the country, including opportunities priced up to $40,000 below market value. Their properties have delivered average projected returns in the 15 to 20% annual range. And in some cases, you can get started with as little as 5% down. The best part is, these are often A-class properties generating $500 per month or more in passive income. And their team, they handle the heavy lifting, including property management. Thousands of investors have used this strategy to generate portfolios, creating over $10,000 per month in passive income. To learn more, click the link below in the show notes or visit renttoretirement.com. And be sure to check out episode 70 of the Physicians and Properties podcast, where I sat down with CEO Dr. Zach Lemaster to break it all down. That is great. I love that. And for folks who are, thinking about like, hey, how can I create my vision, what that looks like? There's a lot of different ways to do it. A great book is called Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. But there's a lot of different things you can do. And I went to this retreat that we go to every year up in the mountains. It's a real estate retreat and a ski trip. And we spent, probably 8 to 10 hours, like just working on kind of our vivid vision for this year and what we want our 3-year vision to look like and 5-year vision. And it was this big workbook and spent a lot of time going through and writing and journaling and filling that out. Then what I did was I came back and I dictated that entire thing into AI. And had it make like a letter that I read frequently, and I sent it to my wife so she could read it, and my business partner so they can see like, hey, this is Alex's vision over the next 3 to 5 years, and this is what he wants his life to look like. Obviously, my wife was tracking beforehand, but then I had it make a phone background, and so I don't know if folks can see this, but every day I get to kind of look at that and see like, hey, these are the big things that I'm striving for from my vivid vision. And so that's been awesome to like, how many times you pick up your phone every day and you can see that. And so it's been really, really helpful. Are any other tools or tricks that you have for people in regards to vision setting?
Yeah, and I love that. Actually setting the background on your phone to your vision or something that reminds you of it, that's actually really practical and something that everybody can really do. And another trick or tip that I have is surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded, who are thinking outside the box, who have that entrepreneurial bug, people who you want to spend time with, you want to bounce ideas off of, having that community of other physicians who want to step outside of their clinical work, or not even step outside of it, but just have other sources of income and be able to practice medicine on their own terms. When you find your community, your tribe, that accelerates your progress. I mean, you can have accountability partners, bouncing ideas off each other, getting advice, having a mentor, someone who's already done the things that you would like to do, and just seeing how they've done it. What are some tips and tricks that you can learn from them? You can always learn from every single person that you meet, and there's so much potential in community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're really going to start pivoting more from like the information is really out there. You can find the information for anything you need between AI and YouTube and all these sorts of things. But it's really that implementation that's the hard part, in that community aspect that's the hard part. And I think we're going to pivot a lot more towards less like Zoom and phone calls and those sorts of things, back into like, hey, let's sit around the bonfire and just have a conversation like we used to. Or at least that's what I hope, because I think we really need that genuine human connection. It's part of the reason we love going camping so much as a family and with friends, is to like just be separated from kind of the outside world and just be focused on being intentional together.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're missing with AI. I mean, they can give us lots of different ideas, and I guess they can map out like a business plan for us, whatever we want AI to do. But it's still not a human being. And being around others, having that energy, if you feel more connected. And I mean, we are human beings. We're not human doings.
Yeah.
So it's important to maintain those relationships.
I like that. Well, I was listening to another interview that you did, and you were talking about feeling burnt out pretty early on, and you realized there had to be more. What was going on in that season of your life, and how do you feel like that impacted your trajectory going forward in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I was pretty burnt out very early on after graduating from my residency program. So I did internal medicine residency in Connecticut, and then I worked as a full-time hospitalist for a couple of years in a smaller community hospital in the area. And the work was pretty tough, just stepping out as a fresh grad, getting into that workflow, trying to figure out how much time I'm really going to dedicate to my notes versus my patients. So every day I would stay late, it's kind of part of the process. And then after I got the hang of it, after I became more efficient in my work, I was still feeling like there's just got to be something more to this. Like I'm seeing the patients, I'm taking care of them, doing everything right, but something's just missing. Like I just feel like I can't just be going through the motions every day, and I'm not feeling that same sense of fulfillment that I used to feel when I just started, even though it was a lot of hard work. So when I transitioned to being a locum hospitalist, I think that was probably a blessing in disguise, because I was able to not only work on my own terms, but also when I did show up for my shifts and I showed up for my patients, I showed up with like a renewed sense of energy. I brought everything that I know and everything that I enjoy into my work. And the patients could feel that too. They're like, oh, this doctor is really happy. She's not your typical regular doctor. And I think that's because I've had so much more free time spending it at home with my kids and working on other projects, that made me very fulfilled and just very excited to be able to come back to work when I wanted to work. So really, I was getting to work instead of saying like I had to work. I got to work, which is a different language that I was using in my mind. And that made the biggest difference for me as well.
I love that. Do you think that burnout in physicians is sometimes less about working really hard and really long hours and maybe more about just being out of alignment?
That's exactly right. Yeah. It's all about what you think or what feels right to you. What are your core values? What aligns with you? What kind of life do you want to live? Those are the questions that you should ask yourself. It's not like, oh, can I pick up more extra shifts here or there? I'll be making more money and that'll be good for the family. But it's like, do you really want to pick up those shifts? Is that going to take away from something else? I mean, it definitely is. It's your time, and time is our most valuable currency. We all get the same 24 hours in a day. It's just about how you spend them. If you spend them on things that you feel passionate about and that align with you, you will be in a much better place than someone who is just going through the motions and going into work every day because they feel like they need to. You always have a choice. That's the thing that most of us, and even physicians, a lot of times don't realize is like, no, I can't quit this job, or I can't step back from all of these hours I'm working because I don't have a choice. I have to do this. No, you do have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Yeah. And that's another limiting belief that I help my clients work through. The world is full of opportunities. And even if there's something that you're really passionate about that doesn't exist yet, some sort of role or job or a project that you want to start, you can start it. This is the time for you to explore. And even if that means waking up 20, 30 minutes earlier, just so that you can work on your other projects in the morning before everybody gets up, or staying up at night and working an extra 10, 15 minutes on something that you're really passionate about. Finding those opportunities of what I like to call net time, like, when you're commuting to work, you're listening to a podcast, you're learning and you're growing in the process. Finding those pockets of net time is going to go a long way for you.
I love that. Yeah, we all have that net time, and sometimes we overlook it, or we get really quick to just like pull out the phone and doom scroll or whatever that may be. And so there's actually a lot more time than folks think when you really sit back and kind of do a time audit and see where you're spending your time. Well, let's walk through the DAMA framework, driven, aligned, building momentum, and taking action. What does that actually mean like in real life?
Yeah, so whenever you are trying to set a goal, you have to first figure out what drives you. So what is the thing that matters most to you? Why are you doing this? You can ask yourself why 7 times over to really try to get to the core of what is the reason that you're doing what you're doing. Once you figure out what matters to you, that's the D part, the driven part, that becomes your guiding compass. And that is your kind of like your North Star to help you get through your goal and help you achieve it. So A stands for aligned. You want to make sure that your goal that you've come up with doesn't just fuel or spark your passion, but also aligns with your core values. Like, what is the most important thing to you in terms of your values? Is it leadership? Is it your family? Is it important to you to give back to your community? So service could be one of your values. And once you list those, let's say 3 to 5 values, you're able to match your goal to your values and make sure those 2 things align. And once that's complete, then we build momentum. And this is the hardest part, because this is where you have to actually take that first action step towards your goal. And there's a lot of resistance clients have with putting that goal into motion. But once you take that first action step, that momentum builds because you start building confidence. So your confidence starts to build up, then you take the next action step towards your goal that helps build even more confidence. And eventually this builds into a new identity. You become a new person through this process, like a newer version of yourself. Once you have that momentum in place, then the last part of the DAMA, which is the last A, stands for action. That's when you take even more action to get you, push you forward, accelerate your progress, and get you to the next step and help you create your next goal. So driven, aligned, building momentum, and taking action. That's the DAMA framework.
I love it. That's a great framework. I feel like some folks probably struggle, like you mentioned, with that momentum piece. What do you feel like momentum looks like when someone is like still busy, they're tired, they're in the middle of life, they're working full-time as a physician, they're taking care of their kids? What are some bits of momentum that you've noticed as you've been coaching folks that maybe they didn't even recognize?
Yeah, I mean, even some very practical tips for very busy physicians are things like be consistent and create daily habits around the things that you really want to achieve. So maybe your goal is to exercise 3 times a week. You maybe want to do some weights and some running. Make sure that goal is very specific and is measurable, something that you can really keep track of, because sometimes you'll have bad days and you may skip an exercise session or so, but you want to make sure that you get right back on track. So daily habits for someone who's trying to exercise may be something like putting out your workout clothes on your counter or right next to your bathroom, wherever you get ready or get dressed the night before, putting your socks and your shoes right next to that the night before. So really removing or reducing the friction that it takes for you to get up out of bed, get dressed so that you can go for your morning run. That's just one example of a habit. But then also keeping track by something even as simple as putting a check mark on your calendar. Yep, I exercised today. I'm going to put a little check mark, and then you can see it. It's right there on your calendar, and it kind of helps build that momentum for the next time. Like, hey, I already did that exercise session, so I can definitely prepare myself and do the next one. It won't be that hard.
Yeah, that is great. And reducing that friction is so important. And seeing that progress is just as important as well. And I think being okay with admitting that it's okay if you miss a day, you miss the check mark, and tying the shoes again and getting back out there is really important.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's how you get started. And then once you are on track and you're consistent with this exercise regimen, then you can level up. And that's exactly the point. You always want to make progress. You always want to push yourself and challenge yourself to a healthy degree. You don't want to like double your workout every time, but just slowly get there. And even like 4% progress every time you work out is going to get you to much better results.
Absolutely. And it all starts with having those SMART goals, as you mentioned, and making sure that it is something specific, measurable, attainable. Oh, what's the R? I can't remember the R in timing. I need to look back at that again. Time bound, but yeah, it's repeatable, I think, is the R. But yeah, so that is really important, and I love that. Well, let's pivot to talk a little bit more about what it looked like for you building your coaching business, generating some of these alternative income streams. Let's start with the coaching business first, and then we'll talk a bit about your real estate as well. What was it like for you to finally start your coaching business, and how was that process for you to get to building that momentum and taking action?
Yeah, so the first and the hardest part is taking that first action step. So even though I've had this idea, I've been sitting on this idea of starting my own business in life coaching, it was hard for me to take that first step. And I think what really pushed me to do it was when I delivered my third son. It was January 2025, and I was hospitalized because I had a bloodstream infection. And unfortunately, it was one of the complications from the pregnancy and the delivery. It really put things in perspective because I was now the patient. I wasn't the doctor, the hospitalist taking care of the patient. And I felt really miserable. I'm like, I feel really stuck. I can't get out of here. I have to, wait till the blood culture results come back so they can adjust the antibiotics and all of that. And it was hard for me to kind of think about anything else other than I just want to get out. I want to be home with my family. And getting through that stage of my life put things in perspective in the sense that life is really short. You don't know what's going to happen to you, when it's going to happen. I mean, I was a very healthy 35-year-old at the time, and now I was really sick, so you really have to focus on doing the things that you love to do and the things that really you're passionate about. And life coaching was one of those things for me. So that's when I decided to start my business. There's all these logistics behind, how do I build my website? How do I figure out where to get my clients? How do I get on social media? I haven't had social media for like 15 years. Where do I begin? So once you get those little small logistics out of the way, then the most important thing becomes like, what value can I bring to my clients, and how can I make their lives better? How can I help them live the most fulfilling lives that they can possibly live? And once you have that vision in place, then everything else follows. I mean, it's almost like you're drawing energy to that vision. And people just kind of tend to reach out to you. They start reaching out because you tell them that you're a life coach and you're doing this business and this work. And then they get really excited and just want to talk to you more. And once you get talking, then you can eventually end up signing on a client, but also really putting yourself out there and getting a voice out in the world, which is why I started the 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗃 podcast. 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗃 is named so because those are the two things that I love, is coffee and play dates. And I really wanted it to be something we have a couple of games that I play, and something very playful that makes my guests feel very welcome, So I'm excited to have you on our podcast, Alex.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a fun time.
Yeah. So having a podcast that really helped get my voice out. I also started a newsletter to give people practical tips on how to handle specific challenges or things that I handle in my own life. So every week is actually a brand new newsletter based on the events of that week, something that really stood out to me. And then I also started a community. So I have an exclusive WhatsApp group. It's called the DAMA Club. And I think we have about 60 members so far. It's made up of women who are high achievers, driven. Most of them are physicians, and they're really trying to make a difference in their lives. They're trying to do more with the time that they have. And there's so much support in there. A lot of collaborations have formed through that community. It's a great networking opportunity. So I really love all of those things that I've been working on. And then the last piece is really showing up and finding ways to connect with others in person. Like you said, live events, like just being there as a human being with another human being, connecting. I mean, there's so much value to that. So I do have a retreat that I'm going to be going to on April 28th. It's the Women in Pediatrics Retreat in Alabama by Dr. Skinner. She's an incredible mentor of mine, and I'm going to be a guest speaker talking about time management at that retreat. So I'm really excited, and it's a great way to meet other very driven women in the field of medicine.
That is awesome. So cool to see where you've come from, 2025 in January in the hospital to now what you've built has got to be absolutely incredible. What did it feel like for you, Olga, when you booked your first paying client and you realized hey, this can actually work? What was that like for you?
It was so exciting. I mean, I was thrilled. I'm like, oh my God, someone actually believes in me. So those are kind of the thoughts you start getting through your head, and you're like, okay, I can actually do this. And it really brings that confidence back and helps you kind of work towards your booking your next client. And then you get excited because you're like, oh, I can do this and this and this with my client, and we can do it this way, and I can send her these resources, and just trying to help her in every way that I can, and sharing my resources, of course, with her along the way. So it's really exciting. I was so honored, and I'm so grateful that I found this new passion of mine, which is life coaching, and be able to really connect and reach out and work with incredible women that have so much potential, but they may not realize it yet, and just help them get to where they want to be.
I love that. Yeah, it is incredible to see that. And I can feel your passion just talking to you right now, and feel how passionate you are and how much of a go-giver mentality you have. And you mentioned it kind of and when you were describing it, and I don't know if you intentionally did, but you mentioned how just providing a lot of value and trying to change lives has brought you so much joy, but also probably brought you so much more fulfillment too in what you're doing. And I think that's something that's really important for folks who are getting started in business in any variety. Is once you figure out what your passion is, just have that mind, that go-giver mentality. Like the book by Bob Burg, if folks haven't read, is incredible. How am I going to just provide as much value as I possibly can without any expectation of return? And you'll be surprised what that return will actually look like. And it's very evident talking with you, Olga, how passionate you are about Coach Olga MD.
Yeah. And on that note, I mean, giving back to our community, I think this is something that everybody should do. Even just small things like volunteering at your local shelter, or any type of charity that you're interested in. One thing that I specifically do in my community is I use my physician skills to give a talk at the library, the local library, to kids between the ages of 3 to 8, and I bring different props. So I talk to them about the different types of doctors. What does it mean to be a doctor? And then I do a little demonstration about different food allergens. So we talk about, eggs, shellfish, nuts, and all of those other things. And then really to put it into like an obstacle course and a game format, that's probably the funnest part. Because they have a lot of fun with just having little stations set up and like throwing the peanuts into the elephant's mouth,
That's awesome. It sounds fun.
Yeah. So just doing things like that, creating those opportunities, because obviously something like this never existed in our community. And then when I pitched to the local library, they're like, oh, this is a great idea. Let's start doing this together. So finding ways you can really give back in a meaningful way, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I agree. That is great. And it's really cool, too, that your kids probably get to go see you do that and see mom give those talks and interact with those kids and give back to the community. And they probably see how entrepreneurship has, benefited you in the household and probably led to some really great conversations as well. And I think that it just is such a fun journey to be able to live out our dreams and practice medicine and live life how we want to. And I wanted to hit on the female physician avatar, if you will, at this point in time. And I know you talk a lot about helping women reclaim time, energy, and confidence without sacrificing career or family. Why were those the three things that you really focused on, and how do you help women do that?
Yeah, because I feel like, at least from my experience, the more time you focus on yourself, like your self-care, making sure that you are physically active, that you are getting all the nutrition that you need, you're getting enough sleep. Those things take up time. And if you don't do that, if you don't focus on your own self-care, you're not going to be able to take care of everybody else. And a lot of times we, as women physicians who are very busy with our practices, we tend to neglect that very important self-care. So that can really lead to burnout. And I can't stress it enough, but you have to invest in yourself first before being able to take care of others. Like they say, put on your own oxygen mask first before putting it on your child in the airplane. And a lot of women just get so hung up in, I have to work, and I have to be at work for these hours, and I can't do anything else in between or before because I'm tired, or after because I'm tired again. There's always an opportunity. There's always 10 minutes that you can carve out to focus on what you need to do for yourself, whether that's eating well, sleeping well, journaling, meditating, whatever it is for you. So there's always an opportunity, and you have to make sure that you do it. Because if you just write it down and you don't actually end up following through, that's not going to lead anywhere. That's not going to get you the results that you need to get. So take care of yourself first. That way you can be even more present with your loved ones when you do have that family dinner together, or you do have that one-on-one moment with your spouse or your kid. You'll show up in a different way, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Have you seen any specific patterns in women that you've been coaching of things that tend to come up frequently?
Yeah, everyone always says, I don't have time. That's probably the biggest complaint and the biggest problem that women face. And that's because their schedule tends to be overloaded with things that they might not even want to do. Maybe they didn't want to sign up to be the head of the VTE committee, or, they're heading this other leadership project that they weren't really interested in. And they felt like they were kind of forced into it, which that's understandable, but you always have a choice to step away from that if it's not something that you really, truly want to do. And by cutting back on those unwanted tasks, things that don't excite you, you can make time for the things that do excite you, or the things that you really need to do to take care of yourself, like focus on your health, your physical appearance, your personal growth, whatever that may be for you. So I would say, don't sign up for extra things if you don't have to, especially if they're voluntary things, unless it is your passion to really try and get ahead and try to kind of progress in your career and you want to maybe be the medical director or the chief of staff for your hospital, then that's a different story. Then those are things that you might want to consider doing. But if you are feeling burnt out, there's a reason for it. And it's probably because you're not taking good care of yourself.
Agreed. Yeah. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to your family or saying no to whatever your, top priority is. And that framework really changes your thought process through things, and is really, really helpful. I've recently really focused on that and trying to say no to a lot more opportunities, because it's really easy. And I'm sure you're feeling it too in entrepreneurship. Like, it's really easy to go from practicing medicine full time, where it's like, yeah, my day's pretty much already full, to then stepping back. Now I work about 2 days per week. And I thought like, I'm going to have all this time. I'm going to have so much free time to just, focus on myself and relax and hang out with my family and all those sorts of things. And then you really quickly fill that up as well. And you're like, oh man, now I have to set these frameworks, and I need to make sure that, I'm saying no to things that don't fill me up. And it's just another phase of a similar thing that I've been learning through and working through as I've had more time away from medicine.
Yeah, don't be afraid to set those boundaries. In fact, you have to set them. And don't be afraid of getting someone, be upset at you because you didn't want to come to their birthday party or whatever it is. It's okay. You have to live your life on your terms and do what's best for you. Of course, you have to give back to others too, but the time that you spend on the things, like you said, that fill you up, that's going to be your most fulfilling time.
That's great. Well, let's bring this to real estate real quick before we wrap things up. You said you had a pretty funny story or an interesting story about your rental property. So let's hear it. Tell me a little bit about your real estate journey, Olga.
Yeah. So very interesting story. In 2024, my husband and I decided to buy our first own investment property. And initially we had a plan for it to be as a short-term rental, which we did. That was the intent. So we bought the property, we closed on it, and then a week later, the hurricane hit, Hurricane Milton in 2024 here in Florida. And the hurricane brought with it a bunch of tornadoes. So our entire neighborhood where the investment property was set got completely demolished, down to the wooden blocks. It was terrible. The street next to us got completely destroyed. The one next to us on the other side got destroyed. And we were so worried that our house, which we just put in $150,000 of our own money into, was going to get damaged. And how are we going to recover from that? We don't even have a tenant living in there. We just closed on it. So we were so scared, and we were praying that nothing bad was going to happen to it. And luckily, we weathered the storm. Somehow, our house and our neighbor's house were the only ones on the street that actually survived, that didn't have the roof torn off of it. We did have a lot of debris from all of the other houses on our lawn and our property, and that took a long time to clean up. But that's fine. But we were just very lucky that there was no structural damage to our property. And I was in my third trimester at the time, and I was picking up the garbage from the front yard with those little picker-uppers, from Amazon.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work, but we did it. And that actually, finding opportunity in any challenge that comes your way. Here's a great example. We were able to use the short-term rental loophole because we got so many hours from doing all this work of cleaning up and helping fix the house that it actually worked out in our favor. And then we were trying to list this place out on Airbnb as a short-term rental. But unfortunately, we weren't able to get that many people to come. We had a couple of people stay for a few days, but it wasn't that much because nobody really wants to stay in a neighborhood that was just destroyed by a tornado. But that's okay. So we had to kind of shift our game plan for the property. So in 2025, in January, we were able to find a long-term tenant and turn this into a long-term rental instead of a short-term. So, the cash flow is not that great from it right now, but that's okay. We have a wonderful person living there, and he's been so good to the property. Yeah. And we haven't had any more tornadoes come by, so that's really good.
Gosh, wow. What a challenge and way to look at it from the bright side. And so glad to hear that there wasn't any structural damage that could have been, really quite devastating. And I hope as well, we still have a rental in Florida, and every time I see a hurricane coming, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And luckily everything's been okay. Knock on wood. So I feel your pain and that tension when you're just watching the storm get closer and closer and hoping that everything will work out. So I'm glad that it did for you.
Yeah, thank you. And since then, we have been trying to build our real estate portfolio. We did shift to looking for more of a multifamily property. But that's kind of tough in Florida. Not to say it's not possible. It's just a more tricky market to get into. But we are now looking out of state to try and make those opportunities happen. Yeah.
That's great. I feel like, as luck goes, you probably are not going to have 2 properties hit by a tornado. I would imagine. If you do, you got to buy a lottery ticket. But I'm glad to hear that you guys are still interested in real estate and pursuing that. I think it's a really key part of anyone's journey towards financial freedom and a really helpful piece to that as well. Any parting shots, Olga, that you want to hit on, or anything that we didn't discuss before we wrap things up?
Yeah. So I love this quote that I like to share by Albert Einstein. It's try not to become a person of success, but rather try to become a person of value, because that's going to be the most fulfilling thing that you can do for your own life. And once you have that, you don't want to let go of it. You want to keep working on your passion, whether that's your business, whether that's real estate, whatever that means to you. Just try to be honest with yourself and know what you're after and why you're doing it. And when you hone in on that, you can do anything. You could really, the sky's the limit.
That is great. That's a perfect way to wrap things up. Olga, how can folks reach out to you if they want to know more, if they want to potentially do some coaching with you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It's www.coacholgamd.com, and you can book a discovery call. It's free. We'll help you figure out where you are, where you want to go, and if this would be a good fit for one-on-one coaching to help bridge that gap. You can also find me on Instagram at Coach Olga MD, Facebook, same thing. And also, if you want to email me, just say a quick hello. You could do that. It's hello@coacholgamd.com.
Love it. Thank you so much. And we'll be sure to include all those links in the show notes. Olga, this was an awesome conversation. I think it was super valuable for folks who are navigating that tension between career, family, identity, passive income. And thank you for being willing to share your journey and your story on the podcast. It's been really cool to see that you've taken your own journey, you've built a framework, and you're helping more and more people become aligned, more intentional, and more courageous in the way that they live and work. So thanks for changing the lives of many physicians, and here's to many more.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. I'm so grateful to be here, and I had so much fun talking with you. And I hope that you also will be able to take away a lot of the different things we talked about today, and really continue to live your life intentionally like you already do.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. Well, with that, it's been Dr. Olga Deengar and Dr. Alex 𝗏𝗏 with another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast. Signing off. Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance, and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.